Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for February the 1st. Well, as I expected would take place, given what we were seeing from the readings there, that the push would be towards the 50%. Of course, didn't expect that it would do it all in one fell swoop, but that's how fast markets are reacting on somewhat illiquid nature. Once we got above the 38, that triggered even more buy. It hit the 50% and rejected right off that pretty quickly. But as we can see right here is what I was talking about. DOC, where midterm buyers in green take over cyan, and cyan dips below that negative 7.5, which, like I mentioned before, was bullish. Not to mention we have the orange dip below red, and red continuing to rise, which is long-term buyers. So all of those things catalyst towards this buyback. Now, does that suggest that it's free reign here higher? Not necessarily. We got to wait. NBI pick up at the same time Magenta is falling, so that meeting will be next. So I'll be looking forward to see if a spider happens, which would be this green pivoting back down and short activity picking up at the peak level. We may surpass that. We'll see. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see it intraday first. From an NQ, you can see how far behind it is, barely making it to the 38%, rejecting off that level, and much closer on that NBI. And a pivot here below that 25 is typically bearish overall. So could be a little bit of mix developing within the readings. Of course, as I talked about, expecting interest rates to continue to rise, which would be TLT dropping further here. Expected to, in my view, go down towards the 125 range, which really would be a signal that Fed has kind of lost the control handle on. Of course, they were backpedaling on whether or not there would be a 50 basis point increase in rates, and that saying, oh, we're not going to do anything that dramatic. And they really can't do anything that dramatic because the market just won't let them. Still, gold is going to eventually peak back up as it becomes just too difficult to ignore the inflationary pressures with oil and what that's going to do, as well as whether or not the supply disruptions could mitigate growth issues. But it's not going to help because you're only going to get increase in pricings as limited supply has caused demand to outstrip where it's at, and that's going to cause elevation in price from a euro standpoint. Again, a bit of a pop-up here in the perception that there may not be as much strength to the dollar going forward, simply because interest rates may not move. So this is the battle that's going on behind the scenes. But while that's taking place, oil still continuing to peak higher and higher, and that affects everything, despite the government's version of CPI. And covered bond issue from there. Bitcoin, nice little spike up on the buy signal from there. Started to develop above that 50%. Magenta rising above it, and took it right back, still below the 39, which is that next key algo level. So we're kind of stuck in that range, beautifully too, between those two key metrics, the 39 and 34 for now. And from an ETH standpoint, it's beautiful setups here. I mean, excellent with the dips and then the capture of cyan moving under red for the buy, and it was just clean throughout that. So very attractive on that setup. And from a 50K standpoint, that buy that took place the other day continued at the peak, and just a tiny little revision, but still well above that 43.99 algo level right there, and the magenta dip, but didn't get a corresponding move of weight high enough, and it actually then stayed below red, and that led to the takeoff that was pretty clean. What I should add here is the new future setup, so I can show you what that looks like. So here's the program that's called Futures Algo Strategy, and if we at that strategy, we get to take a look at what it shows in the customization. And what you have here is the total contracts, short trades obviously being one, and then this new setup here, which is the amount per contract that you can preset as a loss value. And then below it is a true or false for the per contract. So in this particular case, the 1250 is per contract. So if you're layering contracts, each one would have a 1250 loss. If it's set to true, that would be the total position. So if you start to add more contracts to it, you would still have just the total loss. So it gives you that flexibility to do it there. And then, of course, all the values have been preset in the defaults to what some of the best optimization on the 50K were. So that's already pre-established, but it just becomes a nice added failsafe. And then you can set it to any higher amount, whatever the preference is, depending on whether you're trading the E-mini or even micros. So that becomes a nice aspect. And the same thing is available on the Bitcoin setup. It's called Crypto. So here in the list, it's called Crypto Algo Strategy, and what it has is all the optimizations based on the crypto, and there'll be a subsequent one that will also do it for stocks in that as well, and be fully adjusted so that it's just turn it on. This one is preset for 60-minute, and there'll probably be an additional one for lower time frame, just like I'm working one for 5K strategy as opposed to the 50K. So there'll be that flexibility, and that's just because within some of those readings, the further out in time you get, simpler moves of like NBI white and that have more of a reaction even from like a daily and that than you would see from a 50K and then down to a 5K. The reactions are significantly tighter from a control standpoint. So here it is with it activated. It looks exactly the same as it did with the other one, and that's because it is identical and has already the inputs pre-established at the exact same, so you don't have to really do anything to it. Turning to our 5K chart, we can see at the end of the day after the big run-up, we have a nice NBI white there. Fluctuated back and forth when we had the white NBI, but as soon as the magenta took back over, that was a clear run towards the end of the day, but it was consistent by every single time we had these early signals from the NBI readings for the long side. They were pretty clean going up, and it had started off from the early morning kind of softness, and then once it caught that buy, I mean, it was pretty well a done deal, but it still left plenty of opportunities for further action to the upside. So all within what we expected, so it's pretty clean from that, but nice to have those additional add-ons to those strategies, and a couple of the adjustments I've made within the paint bar. You won't notice there are going to be a few more coming out that match a few additional setups with some of these dot configurations that are a little bit more complex. Just something that way you don't have to worry about them, and it makes it easy to see, and they particularly involve where magenta dips below 25 and you have an uptick in white NBI, those kinds of things that really prove to be the most effective catalysts for recognizing those short setups. So as always though, I will continue to update you on Skype chat. If you have any questions, you can put them there. Trade well, we'll talk to you later.